Everybody, they need to take action in Congress, and the Republicans and Democrats are now meeting to reach an agreement on several pieces of a bill. The lawmakers are required to pass 12 bills before the looming deadline, and many people are worried if they will be able to do so in time. Failing to do so could lead to a government shutdown. And now House Republicans are working through a recess to shore up support on a series of spending bills. The leaders hope to put the floor on bill as soon as possible. Now Kevin McCarthy is trying to make good on a series of promises he made to secure the gavel in January. The House Appropriations Committee passed 6 spending bills ahead of the July 4th recess, and negotiations are continuing over recess on whether those bills are actually going to go their way. Now, the Speaker can only afford to lose a handful of members, and it's a massive undertaking, and once again, it puts a spotlight on whether Republicans in the majority in the House can stay unified after divisions stalled the chamber in June. Even the Majority Leader, Stephen Scalise, a Republican, told CNN, "We are having a lot of conversations during the break as well as what to make sure of that we're on the same page." Now, over the recess, members have largely planned small group meetings intended to get Republicans on the same page in the weeks and months ahead on spending. And while the conference is largely united on spending levels for the Department of Homeland Security, there is still some disagreement about spending levels for other agencies. This raising the stakes on whether leaders will ultimately be able to pass the spending bills before the deadline. And already, House Republicans are slashing federal spending back to fiscal year 2022 and in some part of the budget to even lower levels. The massive disparity is top-line spending between numbers for the House and the Senate, as members of the House Freedom Caucus have argued the numbers should be even lower than they are. The message from leadership has been seen if House Republicans can pass 12 appropriation bills. It will give Republicans more leverage in a negotiation with a Democratic-controlled Senate and the White House. Ultimately, everybody, here's what the Republicans are saying about the fourth stimulus check. Members are acknowledging that they'll eventually have to compromise with the Senate or risk a government shutdown. It's possible that lawmakers could buy themselves additional time, pass a short-term continuing resolution, and would fund the government for a few more months. But a debt ceiling bill being passed in May included a provision that will enact a 1% across-the-board cut by April, if Congress is still operating under a CR by then. In the event of a government shutdown, though, most Americans will notice the disruption in one way or another. Maine national parks will also likely shut down, while mortgage and other loan applications could see a huge change.
You know, first quarter of the 20th century, the poet Carl Sandburg described Chicago as a city of big shoulders. A city of big shoulders. He was describing the big shoulders of a working-class American town who were building this city. At the same time, building the middle class. I'm here in Chicago today for the first quarter of the 21st century to talk about the economic vision for this country. The economy that grows the economy from the middle out, the bottom up, instead of just the top down. When that happens, everybody does well.
So why aren't we forecast to win a massive majority in the Senate? Put aside the fact that some of these are more purple states. We should be on track to be picking up an enormous number of seats notwithstanding that. I submit to you the reason why is because to too great an extent, the Republican strategy, but more specifically the strategy of Senate Republican leadership, has been to try to lay back and just watch as these crises unfold.
Folks, we have a ton of good news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI, and SSDI. Continue watching because you don't want to miss out on this. Now, Americans of all incomes would see their federal taxes rise under the climate and healthcare package that was negotiated between Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer. However, the analysis that takes into account the indirect effect of the bill's provision to impose a 15% minimum tax on certain corporations. Economists assume companies would then pass along part of their tax increase to employees by reducing their after-tax wages and job opportunities. According to data from the Joint Committee on Taxation, the minimum tax measure is expected to raise $300 billion over a decade. Republicans are pointing to the report as proof that the package would violate the pledge by the president and congressional Democrats not to raise taxes on those earning less than $400,000. The federal taxes would increase by $17 billion on American taxpayers earning less than $200,000, and those making between $200,000 and $500,000 would see the levy jump by $14 billion. By 2031, when the new energy credits and subsidies are set to provide an even greater benefit to higher income Americans, those earning below $400,000 are projected to pay as much as 2/3 of the additional tax revenue collected that year. But Manchin argued Sunday on CNN that the bill is not putting a burden on any taxpayers whatsoever. He added, "We're doing what we can to make sure we address the problems, and there are solutions to the problems we have." Manchin was a key holdout on the Build Back Better plan for more than a year, causing heavy criticism from his Democratic colleagues and advocates. Now, a bill to repeal legislation that will reduce or eliminate Social Security benefits for retired federal employees and their spouses is coming very close to a House floor vote. The Social Security Fairness Act, introduced by a representative, has more than 200 co-sponsors in Congress. That is more than enough to force a House floor vote. The bipartisan legislation would eliminate two provisions of the 1935 Social Security Act that reduce or eliminate the Social Security benefits of more than 2 million retirees. One is the windfall elimination provision, which reduced the Social Security benefits of local, state, and federal retirees who worked in Social Security covered employment. Lawmakers expect a vote on the legislation that may soon come as September. Co-sponsors of the bill have told reporters that no American should be penalized because of their public service, and they've been waiting decades for a solution to this issue, and now we are close towards fixing this problem. And the National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association has advocated for Congress to eliminate WEP and GPL from the Social Security Act for years. The SSA currently estimates its ability to pay full-out benefits will run out in 2035, at which point it will pay only about 80% of benefits owed to people that are supposed to get it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Later tonight, the Senate will vote on my amendment, number 5185 to the PACT Act. And as my colleague from New York was just saying, it is time that we deal with the issues of toxic exposure. And as a member of the VA committee, this is something that I've worked on for the last few years. Tennessee has a large population of veterans, and we have talked a good bit about this issue and how they receive their care. One of the concerns that we had discussed in committee, in our hearings, we have discussed it with our VSOs. We've discussed this issue as we have talked with veterans who have come to us and to our meetings, is their frustration with having access to the queue, but not getting access to the care. And I think that we have to look at this and say, those are very different. Now, I join our veterans.
Breaking news, there's a new update for Social Security, SSI, and SSDI. An extra monthly benefit boost is going to be passed to help seniors cope with rising inflation, meaning that seniors may receive thousands of dollars extra every single year. It's been a tough year for many